You talk to us about before we get into all the social justice reasons that you're here to discuss. Talk to us a little bit about this song, "Black Music Is Forever." What's the inspiration behind this, other than the
Well,
what we can already glean from the title?
yeah, this is a song that was written by Paul Horton of a group called Concurrence. And I will get in a little plug. Their album is out today. They just dropped an album called Indivisible today. So I am a guest on that album. That song, Black Music is Forever, was the first single from their album that just dropped today. So it's an album that reflects on the history of the interstate system and how the interstate system broke up Black neighborhoods, like in the 40s, 50s, 60s. A lot of those interstates came through. So specifically, this album has to do with that happening in Nashville, but that happened all over the country. So yeah, it's kind of an
Right.
activism album that kind of ties into a lot of the types of things that I talk about on my socials. So I'm honored to be a part of that
Right.
project. It's by a group called Concurrence. It's called Indivisible.
That so it's funny. I was just a couple of days ago complaining. I was like, "Where's the movement music of the 2020s? Like, where
Yeah.
like I know, like in we got if you were to play like some song from Serafina, we would know that's South African freedom music. If you were to play like
Yeah.
Negro spirituals, we know what that is. We know what the music of the civil rights era was. And I've been saying like, where's the music for today?
Yeah.
Now, Dara, I'm not a real singer, but I do like a little jingle, and I come up with these jingles in my head. So I've been doing my best to troll folks like Clarence Thomas musically. I'm certainly no voice like yours, but I have fun with it. But so it's really amazing to me that we got a whole album coming out today. Shout out to
Hmm.
Concurrence. Jonah, we need to get Concurrence on the show because I need to know
Yes.
how did you come to a space where you're using music to talk about the ways that our country's infrastructure broke up Black communities? That is amazing. I
Yeah.
need the whole album. So I know what I'll be streaming and downloading when we get off the air. So
It's
thank
yeah,
you for
it's an incredible album. I did a full listen down this morning, and of course I will be
mm,
listening and listening. But yeah, it's the kind of music that you don't hear enough anymore, and a lot of it for me it harkens back to that era, that conscious era of the '70s, where a lot of this music like Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," Curtis Mayfield's music, Nina Simone's music, all of that stuff was dominating the airwaves, and it just lived right alongside all of the dance music and the fun music, party music. It all lived together, and it
yeah.
wasn't like it was siloed off into its own corner, like, okay, now we're gonna get to the causey stuff. It's like, no, this stuff made you want to move, and
Mm.
it was a part of the musical landscape. So that's a part of what I appreciate about this album, that they put out today, because it's, as you heard, it's a groove. You wouldn't,
Yeah,
if
no,
you didn't
I was just
listen to the
like,
lyrics, you wouldn't really know what it was about.
right. Right. And we have limitations because we're on the talk side of Sirius. So we're not on the
Mhm.
music side. So when we play a song, like once you approach that 30-second mark, that's when the big wigs start, okay,
Right.
we're at that point. We're at that point. But I
Right.
was like, wait a minute, hold on a minute. We need that to rock just a little bit. Just give a few more seconds, a few more seconds.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk with you about one of the many clips that you or videos that you had put out recently about
Yeah.
those of us who have decided we are going to vote alongside the Democratic Party and whatnot. But
Yes,
before
ma'am.
we get to that, I really want to sit in this space. We're in Black Music Month, African American Music Heritage Month, and you,
Mhm.
as one of the voices out there that is blending amazing artistic talent with social justice activism and organizing and content, talk to us about the state overall. I mean, Concurrence is obviously this bright, shining light that we now know about. For those of you who didn't know about the group before, I'm encouraging you to get the album as well. But beyond that, are you seeing from your vantage point space being held for folks who want to use their musical talent to address these issues? We got, 50 Cent going to Congress, not to talk about Black issues of that I think are important, but we'll talk about liquor and music. Sure, liquor is a major industry, music a major industry. Okay, but to equate that with going there to advocate on behalf of Black people, it's a bit of a stretch to me, even if you're advocating for Black presence in those spaces.
Mhm.
So we've seen musicians or rappers coming out and be very political in some very interesting and odd ways, but not necessarily, at least from my vantage point, and it may just be I'm looking in the wrong places, an overwhelming amount of this sort of music for this moment. And so
Mhm.
that we're starting with Concurrence feels amazing to me. Other than that and the work that you're doing and folks within your inner circle, are you seeing that there is still space being held for artists who want to contribute their voices in that way?
I think there is. There is an artist that follows me named Iniko, I think their name is.
Yes.
But
Oh, they're dope.
are you familiar with
They're
them? Yeah.
dope. Yes,
Yeah. I
they
just
are. And I'm saying
became,
because I'm not sure of their gender identity, but they
they
are
are
dope.
non-binary. Yeah. Non-binary.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, artists like that, where it's like, they're not necessarily on top 40 radio. They're not being necessarily played at the top of all the playlists on Spotify or Apple or whatever. They're not the people. That's the difference now. Is that, like I said, Curtis Mayfield, Marvin Gaye, and people like that were at the top of the charts. Whereas a lot of the music related to activism is not necessarily like the most popular music now, but it is there. Like those of us who are involved in music and who know musicians who are putting this music out, we're like, yeah, it's everywhere. Like I said, Concurrence, not a whole lot of people know about them yet, but
Yeah,
you wouldn't know
yeah,
about them were you not talking to me. So your perception would be that the music is not necessarily out there, but it is. It just is not on top 40 radio. That is the only difference,
right.
but it's being
Right.
made.
I love this. One of the things we're going to be doing later this month. We're down now. We've got the first week of Black Music Month in the gate or in the pocket, and so as we're moving forward, we're going to be, at least on this show, exploring some different forms of Black music. The kind that doesn't sit at the top of the top 40. Just
Mm-hmm.
because I think, to your point, a lot of us are just missing exposure because there's
Yeah.
so many ways that you can get music, that you can put music out and put out content right now. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
keyed into the places that are really bubbling with that sort of approach to musical content, well then yeah, you are going to miss it. So I'm looking forward to highlighting some of those voices over the next couple of weeks during this month. And quite frankly, I love that we have Black Music Month, and I think it's amazing and it's awesome and dope. But I want us to do this all year. Same thing like with
Yes.
Black History Month. It's beautiful. We got to have
Right.
it, but let's make it a jump off point for celebration throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
Let's shift a little bit if we can, because your political content and your astute observations of what's happening in society, to me, rivals in some ways your musical talents and gifts. I'm saying that as the highest of compliments and praise. I think you're extraordinarily talented as an artist. And
Thank
one of
you.
the things that you've been talking about recently is this idea that there are these perceptions of those of us who've decided we are going to vote in accordance with the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some critiques about that because, we know all the misinformation, the disinformation. Talk to us about why you have made a decision to not just say, okay, having looked at all the options, I'm going to lean in this direction and I'm going to be vocal about it as a Black woman artist, despite the fact that people are going to call me a shill for the Democratic Party. They're
Right.
going to do all these things. What was behind this decision for you?
Well, I think, and this is one of the issues that I'm really passionate about right now. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And I'm actually working on a script. I had to take a break from the script that I am writing this morning, which addresses this very thing. So I think as one of my mutuals, and I spend a lot of time online, so I'm always referring to, mutuals of mine. These are fellow content creators who, a lot of them, they do a lot of the type of work that I do: activism, justice, political content, that kind of thing. But one of my mutuals, Josh Doss, who is a political strategist, I
Mm,
appreciate what he said. He said it is very important for those of us with a higher profile to be unambiguous in where we stand politically. If we are
mm,
making political commentary, it's important that we be unambiguous in that. And I have found a lot of comfort in that, just coming right out and saying, hey, I have these concerns. I just put out a video a couple of days ago, basically saying, yeah, we know that there are serious issues with the Democratic Party. Those of us who have decided to cast our lot with them, we are under no delusions. We are not blindly following some cult leader. We have our eyes fully open. We understand that the Democratic Party has issues, but we also understand how much worse it is if we allow these other folks to come in and do what they want to do. So studying things like Project 2025, I try not to let that be my reflexive response anytime someone has anything to say about politics. And just, I don't want to get into a space of fear mongering, but I do want to be able to communicate the truth of what can happen if we take our hands off of the reins, if we allow these other forces to come in, which are decidedly authoritarian. They are anti-democratic. You couldn't have even necessarily said this 25 years ago, even 10 years
right.
ago. You couldn't have necessarily said that. But now we are fighting a bit of a different force even than we were, because there was enough going on with the Republican Party, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago and before. Now, with the era of Trump, we have slipped into something that it's not really even democratic. These people are following a cult leader. They are following an authoritarian, and there are plenty of, I would say, Christo-fascist forces behind the
Yeah.
scene, even though he
Yeah.
himself isn't deeply religious, but he is kowtowing to those people. and is allowing them their agenda to lead a lot of what he's doing. So that, my degree is in German studies, international
Wait,
business
what?
and German studies. Yeah,
Sprechen Sie
that's
Deutsch?
ja, ja, ein bisschen. Mein Deutsch ist sehr, sehr
Ich spreche
schlecht.
ein bisschen auch. Oh my God. Okay, so I just asked her, you speak German? She's like, yeah, I speak a little bit. I'm like, I speak a little bit too. Okay, so I was born in Germany, right? So
Are
I
you
was born, I spent a
serious?
significant, yes, sis, so I spent a
No way.
significant portion of my childhood there. Ended up
That's
graduating high school there.
crazy.
I mean, I actually ended up going to 4 different high schools. I had a troubled youthful past, but two of them were here
Yeah.
in the States, two were in Germany. That's
Okay.
insane. Okay, so
That's a
talk. How does German studies?
wahnsinnig.
But
Wahnsinnig.
oh my God, we got two black women talking in German
I
on
know.
Earth.
Has
I
that
love
ever
my
happened
life.
in the history of life? At least here
We're
in the
making
States.
records. We're making records.
Yeah. But yeah, I
How does your
studied.
German studies inform
Oh,
your
well, see,
understanding of this moment?
that's why it gets crazy, because when I talk about Christo-fascism, well, that's exactly what was happening
Mm,
in Germany in 1939. It's like
yes.
we're not super plugged in with this stuff because this is coming up on 100 years ago. In our lifetime, in my lifetime, I will see the 100-year anniversary of the storming of the beaches of Normandy, which is what it was celebrated
Wow.
yesterday. So
Yesterday.
this
Yeah.
stuff, yeah, it's starting to feel like so long ago, but we're not realizing this stuff is not, we are not past the danger zone on this stuff. And I think a lot of people are
Mm,
very dismissive when you talk about these authoritarian tendencies and, oh, this could be our last election and these people are not interested in democracy. It's like, it doesn't take, having studied the history of what happened in Germany, it really does
yeah.
not take that. Hitler was democratically elected.
Yes,
It
he
don't take it
was.
don't take a whole lot for that influence to take root, and for a bunch of people who present themselves as being well-meaning, as being all about, we're in the army of God and we're just trying to do good. They had a vote
Yeah.
yesterday in Congress, I mean in the Senate, where they denied the right 2 days ago, where they denied the right to contraception. They refused to protect the right to contraception. And when
Right.
things like this are happening, it's like, okay, well, you can find all the logic that you want to for it, but it's all there's a drum that's slowly beating, and I feel like we can be just lulled into a sense of complacency because we think we're past it. We just think we're past this stuff, and that's the scary thing for me. So it's like, all right, let's deal with the issues that exist in the Democratic Party. They've always existed. Like I said in my video a couple of days ago, we black folks, we know what the issues
Right.
are. Like you don't
Right.
have to you don't have to ask us to take a realistic stance when it comes to political parties and how they have served us or marginalized us, exploited us, and we understand this stuff. We're not
Mm,
foolish. But we also understand what the alternative is. I believe that we can get to a point where we have viable third parties, where it's not our only option. This binary option is not all that's before us. And I keep recommending, I'm doing a video right now where I'm recommending that people follow a creator named Nick Powers. You can follow him on TikTok, Instagram. This man he's a leftist, he's a progressive, but he also has a very realistic view of what it's going to take to really establish a viable third party. So there's a way to do it, but coming in and undercutting the party that's at least trying to stave off the fascism, undercutting
right.
them, that
Right.
is what the old folks used to call cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's like these
Right.
people are really, sadly, the only thing that's standing between us and some really awful things. And that is not alarmist, and it is not fear mongering. And I will push back against that sort of messaging all day and all night. No, we are telling the truth. So we should
Yeah.
not be. That's why you asked, why am I just out there with it and not afraid to talk about it? Especially at this time where we're all, protesting the US's actions in Gaza. And I am
Mm,
fully aligned, in that space, and have had that called into question online. But
right.
so we're all very much concerned about that situation. But at the same time, we have to realize that we have some major issues that we are dealing with on the home front, and we cannot let go of the wheel because we are singularly focused on that issue, which we know will get worse should the
Right.
Republicans be allowed to do what they want to do. So, there's a lot to juggle. There's a lot to hold simultaneously.
Mm,
And the binary black and
yes.
white thinking it's very dangerous right now. It's very dangerous.
Same with this idea that we can be single issue voters as black folks, and you said so much in this point. I'm going to be looking up this Nick Powers guy. I'm going to check
Yes,
him out
please
as
do.
well. Yeah, I was watching, I was online yesterday and in between meetings, because yesterday was brutal. So in between meetings, I was quickly trying to catch up on things. And I scrolled past this video where I think, yes, Stephen A. Smith was being interviewed about whether or not he would ever enter politics. And he said something to the effect, this is not a direct quote, but he said something to the effect of he would only do politics if it were at the presidential level. And I was like,
Oh,
and you know,
grown.
when we're talking about third party, right? And I'm comparing that to what's happening in South Africa. You know, they got the ANC for the first time lost out on their majority status as a majority party there, and so now they're doing
Mm,
this coalition building. But they've got a bazillion and a half different political parties
right.
there, and so now they're going to be cobbling together this coalition effort at governance. And so the idea of third parties is a phenomenal thing in
Yes.
theory. And I will say this, y'all, because I'm a New York City voter, and we have the Working Families Party, which I love because the
Hmm.
Working Families Party, they're not saying, oh, look at us, this brand new third party that you've never heard of before. We're going to run for president. No, Working
Right.
Families Party is at the local level. They're on the city
Yes.
council. They're at the school board. They're in
Yes.
the Tish James, the attorney general for New York State, when she first got elected, she ran on the Working Families Party. And so they're not
Mm,
trying to supplant presidential politics with ego. They are really doing the work on the ground. There are
that is so
so
cool.
many ways that a
That's so
third
cool.
party can work. And there are ways that I think celebrities can inject themselves or invest
Hmm.
themselves and participate in the body politic. It's just something about why you got to start at president. You ain't never did politics before. You want to start at
See,
president? Why not start at city council if what you care about is using that position for the people? I'm a little confused by this personally.
it's a lot of it's ego driven, and I've done videos about that. Of course, every video that I do about politics and talking about the very issues that you're talking about right now,
Mm,
there are people, especially on TikTok, where it's a very leftist space, which I love. I love a lot of the influence that the leftists and the progressives are bringing to the discussion. A lot of it needs to be heard, but at the same time, there's a lot of this, like I said, the binary thinking. Because if you start, you start talking like that about celebrities who maybe are not as well informed as they should be, or who are driven by ego, then immediately with a lot of these folks, there is a pushback of, well, you want to suppress voices, you want, and it's like, no, we all are actually pushing towards the same goals if we would step back and
right.
allow ourselves to see that. A lot of us are pushing for the same thing. We're talking about different ways of getting there.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
especially as Black and brown people, as women, trans, non-binary people, whatever, if you are not a part of the dominant mainstream culture, we stand to lose a lot more and to suffer a lot more under this, like I said, Christo-fascism, under this authoritarian stuff. And they're coming after our rights. So
Mm,
we have to be a lot more, as I'll use a biblical term, circumspect. We have to be a lot more circumspect in how we approach change. We want the change, the same change that a lot of these progressives are pushing for. But at the same time, we know how much we can be hurt by people
mm,
making statements like, well, we just need to blow up the system. Let's just let it all go to pot, and then we can build something better. It's like you're not necessarily going to be in control of that process.
that's right.
Lefties,
That's
you are
right.
not
That's
necessarily in
right.
control of that process. You let these nefarious forces take over, and you think that means that the White House is going to be in a rubble somewhere, and you're going to end up standing on top of the heap with a red cape, bringing in revolution. And
Wind
that's
blowing in your hair and your
yeah,
hair feeling
yeah.
good about your
Wind blowing,
victory.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's fantasy thinking. And in the midst of that fantasy, there are Black and brown people, women and queer people who are going through pure hell on earth in the meantime for generations.
Right.
We will be
Yeah.
generations forward trying to recover from this stuff. I mean, even for the very simple fact that at least two Supreme Court justice seats are up for reappointment in
That's
the
right.
next 4 years.
Because we got
Even
some
that,
old
even
ones
if
up
it's
there.
only
That's
that,
right.
if that were the only issue that we cared about, that right there is enough to at least vote in a defensive manner. And every election, of course, we will be here again in 4 years. The people like to say, well, you're saying that democracy is on the line, and we're gonna be here in 4 years, and we need to have these
Right.
same conversations, and hopefully we will be a little bit farther in terms of allowing third party to have real contribution in that conversation. But yeah, democracy is on the line every single time you go to the ballot at local levels or at the national level.
Yeah. One of the things I've been saying is listen, yes, the last election we said this is the most significant election of your lifetime because it was. And every
It is.
election for the rest of your life will be because when you
Yeah.
win this round of election on the candidates, yes, but certainly on the policies, the people who wanted other candidates and definitely other policies, they didn't stop. Like
Yeah.
when women won the right to reproductive justice and the right to abortion, the people who didn't want them to have it didn't say, "Oh, well, I guess we
Right.
lost that one. Time to find another issue." No, they mounted up and they launched a 50-year campaign
Right.
and then here we are. So
Right.
yes, friends, every election of your lifetime is going to be the most crucial because the stakes are that much higher because the
Yep.
people who lost out on the last round, they went back, they nursed their wounds and
That's
they're
right.
coming back stronger. So we have to be able to do that. And to the idea of suppressing voices, because I'm going to be talking a little bit about 50 Cent on the other side of this next commercial break. I'm not at all wanting to suppress voices. I recognize the difficulty, however, because American culture automatically gives credence to celebrity voices when
Hmm.
celebrities are ill-informed about political implications or when they speak from their very wealthy celebrity experience
Yes.
and not using their analysis to extrapolate from the policies what is going to happen to their people back home, the ones that they
Hmm.
left, the ones that they don't want coming to their new neighborhood,
Hmm.
then that is a problem because we, the people, automatically give deference to those voices. So I don't want
Hmm.
to suppress voices. I just want the voices to be informed. So if
Yeah.
you are going to speak on these issues, you have an obligation to be
Hmm.
informed about it and not just in a, well, this is what I feel. You got to do your own research kind of
Right.
way. Like, come on, Amber Rose, seriously, sis. I'm sorry. I'm still there. I'm still stuck there. Those are my words, not yours.